to another Lost and Found by the Streetlight. This is your host, Hussein Hallak. I'm becoming more of a podcast host in the sense like I have an intro. Sometimes I just jump into it. Um, and we are joined by somebody else that I really respect and I got to know through LinkedIn. I'm becoming this LinkedIn streamer. And Jim Lord, who's did the oath of office, and which is a fascinating kind of initiative, I would say. And we're going to talk politics. I'm going to learn about what he's doing. Please join in and ask your question. Jim, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here, and I'm looking forward for a great conversation.
And thank you for having me, Hussein. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's get started really quickly with tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself so that people get to know you in your current capacity and why you started the oath of office. What's the story behind that?
Okay. Okay. Well, historically, I've had little or nothing to do with politics. So, I go vote, and that's been it, pretty much. But, um, with COVID, with what's been happening the last 10, 12 years, and politics especially, and, started, me personally, I've started to take more of an interest. And like so many Americans across the country, taking a bigger interest in politics. We're seeing a lot of people get into politics who never thought they would. And so at first I thought I wanted to run for office, but I'm closing in on 70 years old, so I think that would be
Really? I didn't think so. Like I thought like you were like in your I would say 50s. That's
no.
awesome. You
Thank you,
look
thank you,
great for 70.
thank you. But no, it doesn't. It doesn't work for someone my age to become an official. At this age, we need to make room for younger generations. So,
Mhm.
so beginning of 2024, I decided, well, let me do something else. And at first, I volunteered with some organizations to learn the lay of the land. Then, in the beginning of the second quarter, I started putting together a think tank of a few people that I respected, and we started having discussions. And we thought, if we're going to do something, then we need to make our time count. And uh, so what matters? And we simply approach it that way. What's the biggest problem with politics? And if you ask the average person that, they've got a ton of opinions, but it's a lot of things. It's hard to boil it down. And our job was to boil it down, to find the tidy may, if you will, the touch points where if you apply pressure here, it would have the biggest impact. And so we gave ourselves until the end of the first quarter of 2025 to figure that out. And we think we did. We think we boiled it down to what the pivot point is, and a few things, and we can talk about those and so forth. And so we formalized that into a process, into a methodology and a strategy, and then launched the Oath of Office and Laboratories of Democracy at the beginning of April of this year. So Laboratories is the think tank, the
Yes.
501c3.
What what
And
does what
go
does the
ahead.
think tank do? Like what is the intention and the goal and the mission of the think tank?
It thinks. Um, and no, its job
Obviously.
is to, its job is to, and it does it through projects. So we finished project zero and project one. Um, and our approach is broken into two strategies: strategy A, and plan B. We don't have a lot of the groundwork done on plan B yet, but plan A assumes that by the midterms, we'll still have electoral democracy. Okay.
Mhm.
One of the things we started early in this year is every month we asked the six major LLMs, AIs, a lengthy prompt about, to boil it down, what they think the odds of us being in an autocratic democracy by the midterms are. And it's been interesting to watch the trending on that. We also asked them at the beginning of this, assume this prompt was asked in the 1990s, 1998, or something like that. And they're across the board, their answers came back less than 1%. Okay. And then the first time we asked them, assume it's now, what do you think the odds are that by 2026, we'll be in an autocratic democracy? And for people who aren't familiar with the terms, an autocratic democracy is one that looks like a democracy, but the mechanics of the voting and the gerrymandering and stuff like that make it a fait accompli. It's
Yeah.
it's It's not really. Your vote doesn't really count.
It just has the word democracy in the name.
Yeah, it has the word, the people in power are going to stay in power no matter how you vote. And so at first, early in this year, pretty much across the board, it was 10, 20% they were saying. Okay. Now they're saying 60, 70%.
Oh, wow. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. And Claude shifted its response from a localized nationwide, hey, here's the odds, to an international one. Claude's latest response was, internationally, the United States is now considered an autocratic democracy. Yeah, that was stunning. So anyway, I'll stop there. Strategy B, plan B is about how to handle this, what to do if we are an autocratic democracy by then. Strategy A is where we'll focus today. It is assuming that we still have an electoral democracy. What do we do? And with that, go ahead.
So I have a question, because you are, from what I saw, like you're an accomplished person in the corporate sense, let's say. Most of not an accusation or an assumption, but generally people in the business world prefer less government, prefer deregulation. It's a general thing. I'm not sure if it like, I'm generalizing here, but so why are you so interested in democracy? Like, business ends up benefiting either way. It's more like deregulation, the Trump administration is kind of, business has a revolving door right now. You have billionaires in place, so isn't it like favorable for business? Isn't it? I mean, I am asking the question kind of a little bit, where I stand. But what would you say to those people saying, well, you know what, it's better, less government is better, smaller government is better, less subsidies for people who are not working for their job or money is better? What do you say to those? Why are you so interested in establishing, like, maintaining a democracy that is a welfare or something like that?
To people like that, I'd say they haven't done the research. The knee-jerk response, less government is better, it follows along with those people who like to compare government with a business. Simply because they have processes, they handle money and things like that. You should not compare a government with business. A government is an administrative network for society. When we were tribes and things like that, having a singular leader, that would work. Okay. But as you get to large organizations, you have to have a methodology for handling it. Now, the question simply is, do you want a methodology that maximizes happiness, maximizes a sense of security across society without requiring that society be stupid, without requiring that people be dumb? Okay. Do you want that, or do you want something where it's really beneficial to a few people to become very, very wealthy? Okay. And and business can flourish in either scenario. Now, the flaw with thinking of government as a business and thinking that it should be run like a business and so forth. Well, there's one thing about business, especially in the capitalistic sense. Business thrives off failure. You must fail to learn. And, one of the things I don't necessarily agree with, but the Silicon Valley side is very big about break things and move on. You can break things and move on if you can afford to break things and move on. But it is a way to get past the failures first. People who are afraid of failure never achieve anything. So breaking things and moving on, that makes a little sense on the business side. Okay. It makes no sense in government because you can only have one government. And a government, and people are going to hate me for saying this, but it needs to be our safety net. It is society's safety net. And I don't care if you think that that's, if that sounds leftist or whatever, socialist or whatever, it needs to be thought of that way. Otherwise, why have a government? Now, if you don't have a government, then you're favoring a very small number of people. So I'm not sure if I answered your question
No,
right.
this
I
is
mean,
good. I'm just making sure I'm kind of becoming a little bit old fashioned with a pen and paper, taking some notes I can ask, so I know like what to ask. You said something, isn't it fascinating that even in business, we do have some sort of safety net. I work a lot with startups. I mean, that's why you raise funding. You raise funding so that you have some money while you're actually figuring out your
yeah.
path to market.
Hmm.
You don't, you don't pour. It's not recommended that you pour all your saving whatever and take a bet on business. You usually take a bet with investor money, and that's what investor money does. It covers you, gives you a runway. You
Hmm.
do insurance. If you're a big business, you have insurance. Like, you don't, nobody just works with you and you can disappear tomorrow. You have processes for filing chapter, let's say, or filing bankruptcy. There are all these governance elements in business, but somehow
Hmm.
we seem to understand that business without regulation somehow works, even though business has regulation. It's a hierarchy. Like, there's so much regulation and governance in business to manage these massive organizations.
Yeah.
But we somehow pretend it's not there.
Yeah. And I mean, I totally agree. There's way too much regulation, or it's, yeah. Um, and let me put it this way: there's way too much regulation that gets down into people's personal lives.
Mm.
We spend an inordinate amount of our time addressing the regulatory issues of our personal lives. Um, everything from insurance to just it's phenomenal. And so yeah, I am all for reducing that. Now, some of the systems coming out are going to do a great job reducing that, but also at a certain risk.
Yeah.
Taking over control of that. At the same time, eliminating regulations the way it was effectively done by eliminating the organization under and Doge earlier this year, that was not the intent of that organization.
Hmm.
You know, um, but that's not the way to do it. All of these were carefully put in place. If we're going to dismantle them, they need to be carefully dismantled. Yeah.
Yes, reviewed and span. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
So let's go to the idea of accountability, the idea of delivering on your word. Like, we somehow agree, I think, on the idea that you need some sort of government and administrative of societies that are highly centralized, that have multitude of people. We need that kind of system, and we it's never going to be perfect, but the reason is we can't afford to, let's try something, like there's an
Yeah.
element of I think, of intentional waste, because you're trying to protect lives. Like, if you go to a hospital, for example, a hospital is not checking, do we use how many, cotton balls do we use here, like, to save this life, we'll spend everything, and
Hmm.
then we'll worry about it. And if you see, like, the operating room, you'll see a lot of things, thrown around, and the way that operates, it's the purpose is to save the life. So the
Yeah.
more, let's say, I think, risk, let's say, we say health, we have to have more regulation, and some of them will be wasteful, some of them would be, let's say, or we would have probably put more people on the topic, because there is so much at stake, right?
Mm.
It's not the same. I like how you said it. It's not the same as business, where in business you can afford to fail, like, because at the worst case possible, nobody's dying. Let's say, no, there's no
Well,
life.
some cases are dying, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
But
like, in
yeah.
general, most of, like, you're selling a product. The worst things, like, the product didn't deliver, or
Mhm.
didn't catch the market. But of course, the more the product attached to people's lives, like if it's a medicine or something, you need higher regulations. You need
Yeah.
more emphasis on it.
And
So
and it's
Mhm.
interesting you mention that because we lose a little over 150,000 lives every year in this country due to human mistakes in the handoff of a patient from one medical provider to
Mhm.
another medical provider. These are strictly human errors, and you know, um, it's it's something you almost cannot regulate. But that's an example of human errors that are down in the weeds. And
Mhm.
150,000 lives—that's a lot of lives.
Yes.
Concurrent with that is over a million lives that experience tremendous drop in quality of care because of those same kind of errors. Um, managing that, there is an answer for that, because, and this is actually a sweet spot for me, because one of my companies does that, is um, the handoff, when people hand things off from one another, that's workflow, and how that workflow happens can be abstracted in such a way that you can fix things that take into account the human frailties, the human failures. Why did that person fail to hand that patient off? Or why did they hand them off and the other person failed to pick up the communication, stuff like that? You can address those things without putting an onus on the staff themselves. So that's a case where the regulation would not touch the people. It would touch the processes that the business uses. But once again, these things have to be, intelligently thought out.
Yes. Yes. Some elements, it sounds like as well, some elements are you can enhance with training, some with regulations. Like there are so many different things, as long as you identify the problem and address it intelligently, which means like, you have some sort of way to measure the outcome. You have some sort of way to define that multiple, let's say, people, organizations are interested, and the objective as well. It seems like that's one thing I wanted to ask you, is that for some reason nobody is questioning the motives. Like we say, what, private industry is better, and like, hang on a second, like nothing is inherently better. Like neither government. It seems like the conversation always, especially in the media, which is supposed to be uplifting, let's say, the general public understanding, it seems like the conversations there are, like, for the lack of a better word, like very dumb. It's like, is it better government or private? Like that's not how things work. You should,
Right.
there are so many, I mean, even in when I sit in when I work with companies, we have more intelligent conversations, like, okay, let's look at what is the objective we want to achieve, what are the parameters. Like there's so many different elements to judge something, but it seems like it's always like this or that. Is it the Republican or Democrats? Which one's better? Like it's not like that. It's, let me talk about the policy. And it's staggering to me that you look at the media and they're having worse conversations than regular people have. I had better conversations and smarter conversations on LinkedIn and Twitter than the ones had on media. So what are your take on this, and where do you see the reason of this coming from?
Well, I tell you, I love Christian Armitage's was it Existential Republic, his article a month or so ago on the consolidation of media under the oligarchy. And he mentions how I think Ellison's son bought CNN or something like that, and the various media empires are being accumulated under a small group of very powerful people, who all are leaning in kind of the same direction. And we both have international relations and friends and family that live outside the United States, and so I'm sure you hear things going on that we don't hear of in here. And the media, even CNN and ABC, CBS, and MSNBC, we don't hear about certain things that are happening that are big things in the world. And why is that? Why aren't we hearing it? Why isn't it in the news? The consolidation of media outlets and things like this started more than 50 years ago. And we had hundreds and hundreds of stations across this country, independent TV stations and radio stations. And then they started to be acquired into a network. And we passed rulings on the FCC decades ago to limit that. And I think, one of the things that happened recently was that limit of, I think it was 39%, was broken to allow, the consolidation, more consolidation under a single ownership. And that is not a good thing, because you need diversity, you need anti-monopolistic rules when it comes to communication and so forth. And by the way, it's one of the reasons I enjoy communicating with you on LinkedIn. So far, LinkedIn has not expressed, that I can tell, a lot of control over its traffic in a bad way, muting traffic. X, on the other hand, not so, and so forth. And I'm going to put a plug in here for says.us. Says.us was launched this year, I think in March. So they're like a Blue Sky. Kudos to Blue Sky for attempting to create a model where social media system cannot be easily acquired. Okay, it runs on a thing called the _AT protocol, which allows it to run off multiple servers and stuff like this. Okay, there's now a better protocol, DSNP, and Says.us is built on that. It would be very hard for one very wealthy person to acquire Blue Sky, but not impossible. It would be almost impossible to acquire Says.us. So Says.us is growing. They're now international. We're in talks right now with them about incorporating them into our Oath Network membership models. Okay, and so anyway, I want to point that out because it's very important that we have channels where we can communicate, but also where we can get information about the world that is not being unduly influenced by entities with political interests.
Yeah, definitely. I think the control of the media and the way the media is, like, sometimes I hear I'll be watching Fox News. I was like, no real person would actually like believe this thing. But in a way, I remember myself of, let's say, growing up in Syria and having one channel, which is the government channel. And we used to have this joke about they opened another channel, and whenever the president is doing a speech, the people like don't want to hear the speech, like they're not interested. They want to turn to the other channel to see something different. And we had this joke that when you turn to the other channel when the president's doing a speech, there's someone with a gun saying, "Go back to the first channel,"
Yeah.
threatening to. So
yeah.
and it's funny. It's funny. I mean, that's a funny thing. But when I open Fox News sometimes, and not because of the differing opinions, there is that, of course. Like there is a lot of atrocious opinions there. But aside from the atrocious opinions, that doesn't bother me as much as something you said, and I like about the oath of office. It's kind of like a segue to that, which is, it seems like those people are not sincere about where they stand. Like you can sense they're lying about what they themselves believe. And when the Dominion kind of lawsuit came about and their messages were discovered about what they said in private and what they say in public, I thought that, like, that's it, that's the nail in the coffin. And not because of their atrocious beliefs, like just because they don't even believe those beliefs. Like so it wasn't like, well, you're an atrocious person. I heard someone saying like they would rather talk to an honest bigot rather than, let's say, a dishonest one, because at least that person stands for those and they're sincere about that. But these insincere one, like, you can't have a conversation with them because they're insincere. Which brings me to why I like the oath of office. You seem not to be taking a party kind of like, it doesn't matter, any politician. So tell us about the oath of office. Why do you think it's important, and why did we have to get here? I mean, isn't it just by assumption that if you're a representative there, you're representing the people? Now it seems like you have to have somehow a seal of approval. So tell me about
that assumption. Unfortunately, doesn't hold anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and it's been anyway. So yeah, I could go down.
Please go ahead.
But no, the oath of office is nonpartisan. We go out of our way to point that out all the time. We're nonpartisan. We don't care what party you're on. What we do care about is that you will turn out to have a background, when we check your background, that tells us that yes, you do believe in the 7 articles of the Politician's Creed. And by the way, I'm going to put those links in your chat. Let's see. The Riverside chat here, if I can figure out how to use it.
I think I'll put it. So do you want me to put, because I have the oath of office open, I can, the guiding principles, is that? Or which one do you want me to post?
The Politician's Creed, if you have that one.
The Politician's Creed. Okay. Well, is it on the homepage? Here.
This is the first time I've used this. There you go. Okay, I put it in the live stream chat.
Okay, great. Let me just take it and I'll post it. Thank you.
Yeah. So the Okay. So yeah, the Politician's Creed, the 7 articles thereof, and one of those is the link actually to the National Registry of Certified Candidates on that page. But from there, you can get to the articles page. So our think tank last year, when we decided, hey, we need something that people can look at that's not over on the collaboration side. And remember, there's 2 things that a politician does. And just one is they represent their constituents for the needs, to address the needs of their constituents. That's what they were originally tasked to do. Okay. Now, some of those needs extend beyond the borders of the district. So the politician has a second job, and that is to collaborate with other politicians to address those wider needs. And that's it. Everything else comes out of those 2 things, Hussein. And but over on the collaboration side, we have evolved parties. George Washington was famous for saying parties will be the death of our country, And we have evolved parties as ways to corral around policies and things like this. We've evolved big money, lobbyists, and so forth. Committee assignments come through your party and things like this. So with that, accountability has come over here. The party can give you funding, for your campaign if you obey the party. The party will not primary you and will keep you from being primary if you obey the party. Okay. So accountability has shifted over there, which, as I said, over there is a smaller group of people. If accountability has stayed on the representation side, accountability is the whip that we crack, okay? Then we would crack that whip when all the people are not being served. But accountability has moved to the collaboration side. So the whip gets cracked over there. How many people are over there? It's just the politicians, the big business, and stuff like that. So what's being done is to their benefit to keep the whip from being cracked, as opposed to being done for the benefit of all the people. That's why we have to get accountability back. So it's that simple. So people vote because they're so busy with their lives, they vote along party lines. Okay. I don't have time to research all of this. I'll just vote for straight down the party ticket. We have to give them something. So the Politician's Creed and its 7 articles were designed. We spent 8 months going through it, making sense of it. What exactly would form a standard, a commitment that if we backed away and left the politician and they abided by that, then the world that we would envision comes into existence on its own. And that world is one where we do have a democratic republic, the way we perceived, as youngsters in school and stuff like this, that benefits everyone equally and so forth. So, so these 7 articles form an axiomatic basis that if they are followed, this will follow. Okay, that's that. How do we show that someone has committed to it? With the badge. So they have the badge on the side. Each politician who swears the oath of the Politician's Creed, and they have to do it publicly. It's videoed, and we put it up on our YouTube channel. Okay. They are then given a trademarked serialized badge that they can put in their footer. I've seen several of them put it in their signature line or their emails now, and so forth. And when people click on it, it takes them straight to the 7 articles so they understand what this politician has promised their constituents. And so our goal in next year, by the midterms next year, is to have over 1,000 candidates in those in the midterms who have taken that oath, who have that badge on their site and so forth. And people can just look for the badge and make their vote that way. The badge will never become part of a party. The constitution of our organization will prevent that because it will actually be controlled by the members of, anyway, let me not go down that path yet. We're getting too far down the Russian doll strategy, but anyway, anyway, that's, I'm probably going way down the rabbit hole.
No, I love it. I think one of the things that immediately shows up to me. So first of all, you're saying 1,000 candidates. Let me ask you, how much of a percentage of all of the candidates is 1,000 candidates?
To 25%.
25%.
So about 7,500 candidates will run in next year's elections for state level, Congress, House
Mm.
Representative, Senate, things like this will be running. So anywhere from 1,000. Our goal is 1,000 to 1,500. If we get 1,500, that's 20% actually. So,
What's
but
the what? How much do you, can you disclose how much you have right now?
we started out slowly, one or two a month.
Mhm.
We're now at about 10 a month, 15 a month, but that's growing. We're doing two,
That's
three, 4 a
great.
week.
That's
By
awesome.
the end of this year, by the end of February, I mean, this month alone, well, Thanksgiving will slow things down. But we've also, part of our strategy is not to do it alone. So the
Mm.
process, and sometime I'll show you the process engine and all that kind of stuff, the way we run this organization. At the moment, we're strictly a volunteer organization.
Mm.
And But what we do now is we've got the process figured out for this, the TPC side, politician creed side. So now we're packaging it up, and we're going to send it out to any endorsing organization
Mm.
that, hey, if as part of your endorsement, you believe that your candidates should take the oath, or then simply hit this trigger, okay, and it will start the process to interview them. They go through multiple interviews. It's a 3 to 6 week process. We do a background check. If they've been in office, we'll look at their voting record versus what polls for the constituents said, things like that. And if they make it all the way through, then they get to take the oath. Okay. So as we've started reaching out, we've reached out to 3 organizations now, and I'm starting to learn how to talk to them about this. And as they incorporate this into the process, and quite frankly, this may actually take some work off their shoulders, because
Mm.
you don't endorse someone unknown. And if we're doing some of the research for you, that can make endorsement easier. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think
But
that's. Go
yeah,
ahead, please.
I was going to say, I want to be clear. Earning the badge is not an endorsement. It is a certification. This is a
Mhm.
certification. You are certified as a politician.
Yeah, I'm looking at the at the articles of the Politicians' Creed. I think there was this movement, I think, with the progressives to say money out of politics. And definitely it's, I think this falls, let's say, as part of that, even though it's not exactly it, but it's part of that, basically removing other undue influences. So that's good. But I see this as uh, from my perspective, I would say, I mean, they politicians can say, I am not taking, let's say, and I asked this to Dylan
Mhm.
Balaha, who you introduced me. Thank you very much. It was very nice to do an interview with him. Um, and I
He's a very
asked
sharp
that,
guy.
what is that?
I said he's a very sharp guy.
Yeah. And I asked him this question. I said, I mean, we saw that with Fetterman, for example.
Mhm.
He campaigned a certain way, and now he's a complete different person. Funny enough, the Republicans are celebrating him, and they're not celebrate and zilch about the 4 Republicans that kind of went against Donald Trump on the Epstein thing. But the idea of giving people an easy way, because you're right, a lot of times it's not necessarily laziness, it's hard. Like everybody is, once, even people who want to participate in the process, it the politicians, their job, and all of the companies that advise them, and their advisors, don't make it easy for you to figure out what exactly they're saying, especially if they use the euphemisms and like the, certain political language to hide, I the other day I published uh, this, like, he didn't say anything. I don't know if you saw that video, which is, he didn't say anything. Basically, as politicians, we have to stand for the issues,
Yes.
and we
Yeah.
have, like, it's you're saying something but without saying anything. But what I like about what you have is that it's actually pretty clear. Like,
Mhm.
Article 1, a foundation of rights and security. All people have the right for a fair, equitable, and happy life. So it seems like when you're vetting them, that's what I wanted to get at. you
Mhm.
are you are vetting them not as a politician's vetted. You're vetting them basically on, did they deliver on their word? Are they
Yes.
kind of compromised on that sense?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, if what you are vetting them for,
Mhm.
how does that, what are the things that will disqualify, and what are the things that, like, are you looking for?
Okay, and now this may sound strange, but
Mm-hmm.
we have to stay away from policy.
Mm-hmm.
And there is only one area where we will get involved in policy,
Mm-hmm.
and that is actually highlighted in Article 7. Okay. So it's almost kind of like Gödel's lemma. Gödel put out his lemma, I think it was 1932, and it shook the foundations of all intellectual people in the world, and mathematics especially, because for the first time it proved that every realm of thought has a back door to it. You can't wrap it up and put a bow on it. Okay. And so 7 is our tribute to Gödel. But we don't touch policy except if it is any policy having to do with diluting the vote of the constituent.
Mm-hmm.
So so how do we do that? How do we judge a candidate as worthy for the badge or not? When policy is so divisive these days, and for that, we've had many steering committee meetings / ethic meetings and things like this discussing these points. And we knew that as we got into many candidates and so forth, and we've been through about 90 or something candidates, and I think we have 30 of them certified. So it is an issue of, are they true to their word to the candidate? I mean, to the constituents. That's what matters. They make a commitment to their constituent. So let's take a fictitious policy X, that maybe you and I and some of the people out there are really against, really hate. It's ideologically nasty. Don't like it. Okay. But if the constituency by a large margin says, no, we want this policy, and the vote comes up for it, should the politician vote for it or vote against it? Okay. They should vote the way their constituents have asked them to vote. Now, what if their constituents have been misinformed? Okay. What if that politician, it's the onus of the politician. Articles 3 and 6 are all about communicating with your constituents. Okay. And Article 6 is about mentorship with your constituents, leading them to activism and getting involved, informing them, stuff like this. If you as the leader, as the assigned leader, cannot convince them that this policy should not be voted for, and they still want you to vote for it, then you need to vote for it. Okay. You've done a bad job. If, on the other hand, you have convinced them to vote for it, but the act of convincing them was to gaslight or lie to them to get them to vote for it, then you've reached Article 4, and we'll take the badge back. Okay. So this way we can stay away from policies and getting into the mix. And we have to stay away from it because we have to avoid being attached to any ideological base. That badge has to be independent of all things. It is only about the relationship between the candidate and their constituents.
Mm.
But that relationship must be honest, and it must exhibit integrity, and it must be transparent. And we'll be watching for that. So
I love it. You go ahead, please.
No, that's it. Go ahead.
Yeah. What I love about it is that it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's like you are hired or you're selected to do this job.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you're aiming to do this job to the best of your abilities, this is what you're trying to control for. You're not trying to control, the how. Like, we can disagree about how to help people, but we have to help people, like that kind of thing. You can't be saying that I'm just exaggerating here, saying I'm going to help people to get in so that then you can help, let's say, somebody else, like the corporations. Mm-hmm. So how you help people, you can have differing opinions, which is the policies, as you're saying. Like, let's say you're debating healthcare. You're presenting, let's say, a solution for healthcare, but that solution is not meant because your let's say your position is not whether you help the insurance companies or the people. You're trying to help the people. Maybe you have different opinions, but the purpose is what you were hired for. That's what you were hired as a politician. You were hired to represent the people, to help them, to protect them, to represent their interests, and that's what you're controlling for. How you
That's
do
right.
that and your opinions, you're basically trying to remove the influence, but without controlling what the opinion is. You can have differing opinions, and
That's right.
that's why that's I think it's a genius way to say, well, who's going to oppose this? Like, it's not it's non-partisan. We're not trying to say you have to do it. Let's say healthcare. We're not saying it has to be healthcare for all or whatever, but whatever is how you call it and how the mechanics are, who it helps should be the people you represent, should be coming from them and their position and what they want, rather than, let's say, what the corporations want or whatever, who paid, let's say, donors and stuff like that.
Yeah,
do you
spot on. Spot on.
yeah do you tackle, let's say, the funding aspect in or is it, let's say, you care, and I'm not because I haven't read through everything. um is there saying, whoever your donors are, it doesn't matter as long as you commit to those, or there is something saying, well, if you have corporate donors or, large scale donors, because by definition they would expect something, like how you're tackling this, what's your thinking around that, from the oath of office perspective?
Yeah, and we have tremendous thoughts, strategies, tactics for that. We've not published them all yet. We haven't finished writing them all up, but they are part of our discussions with candidates. Our goal is to make this a formal training process. We're still, 7 months old, 8 months old. So you'll see a lot of this get out there next year. But very simple. There's 2 networks that every candidate has to build. If you're going to become a politician, you need to be aware that you've got to build a grassroots network and you've got to build a political network. And the natures of both you need to understand. The grassroots network, from a funding perspective for your campaign, they're the ones who donate $5, $10, $25. Throughout the life of your campaign, the average grassroots person is going to donate a total of somewhere between $30 and $55 to you. Okay. And that's based upon you constantly asking them for more money, more money, more money. Unfortunately, by the end of your campaign, they're going to get an email from you that's once again talking about why it's so important that you get in office. And by the way, can you give me $20?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to not think as highly of you as they thought coming in. So that when they first heard about you, their eyes were shiny and wide open and just ready to wrap their arms around you. But by the time the election is around, you're just another politician because of that simple little thing. So we actually have tactics to address even things like that. And we talked to them about that. When it comes to the bigger the network, the political network, the nature of that from a funding perspective is that's where you get the $1,000 to $100,000 or, the larger donations or whatever they are, however they come to you. You also, and the natural thing to say is you also get access to influence. Well, why is that true? Well, it's because accountability has manifested in the bigger network. It's moved from the grassroots up there. Before I was talking about representation and collaboration. Turn it this way, it's the same thing, and that influence is there nonetheless. So we talked to them about how to handle that. We talked to them about if you get in there, be aware that influence is there until we build your oath network down here, which can create a counterpoint to it. Okay. And the oath network is a type of membership thing. And this is one of the reasons we're in talks with says.us, because the communication, the channels to it, we need it to behave a certain way, and they're perfect for it. So, and building that up in, under, and around each candidate will give them the defenses they'll need to counter that influence, to counter the money. We believe that this can help them raise 3 to 5 times as much funding to counter the other side and so forth. But for instance, we say if you accept, a big check from a big donor, make sure that You send them this document, and this document basically says thank you and so forth. This is to affirm that this donation is without any expectation of a quid pro quo, you know, and that you have them sign that, you know, formalize it. You put it out there, you know.
It almost sounds like um, you're acknowledging a reality that exists, which is running a campaign requires money.
Yeah.
I am in favor, in general, of, let's say, for any government office, that there is, if you're running for office, let's say, and you get, let's say, I don't know, certain number of signatures, there should be money coming from the government, let's say, to cover your campaign, so that you don't need, or something like that, so that the raising of funding. But that's like
I would love, yeah, I would love
yeah,
to get to that point. But
but
if we
we're
were
not there right now.
right, we're not there. And if we were to
Yeah.
push for something like that today, it would be abused by those in
Yeah,
power.
yeah.
Yeah.
So right now, I think what you're doing is like, okay, so you're gonna have to get donations. You're saying that you're pairing education of saying you need to build these networks. So you have this network and that network. You need to build your grassroots networks, and
Mhm.
you're. It seems like you're aiding with that. And if you're getting donations, just make sure that you have a process in the oath of office to make sure that it's as benign as possible. Like, yeah, you want to donate for me and you want to help me with my campaign, great, but be under expectation that these are the people that I serve, and I will always serve them. And I think that's really important. And I think I like these approaches because
Mhm.
I'm a pragmatic as well. Like I like I build companies. So when you build a
Mhm.
company, you have to deal with reality, because you can't just assume there are customers. You can't just assume things are going to work themselves out. They have to work themselves out. So I think that's what I was hoping. In a way, with that maybe a segue to other things. You're a business person. That's honestly what I was hoping when people would talk, business in politics. Because for me, business, a lot of people may not know this. I grew up in Syria, and then I went to Dubai, and everything I learned about business, this is prior to the internet and then through the internet, is from reading books by American authors about American businesses, about the importance of ethics, about the importance of principles, how you build trust in business, how the importance of over delivering, delivering value. Like, these are the things that business operates. And it seems like, I mean, it's my rant against the administration. But
Yeah.
honestly, forget about, there are of course like level of crimes and all of that. But let's say we set that aside, which is a tall order, just to set
Mhm.
it aside for a second. But just from the perspective of like jet management, like just regular, uh, half decent management is completely absent. Like these, for the lack of a better word, idiots can't run anything. Like
Yeah.
and they run it like the opposite of what we expect a business to run. So is
Mhm.
it that people are not informed about business? Is it like, is it like the like, what's your personal take on that? Is it like, these people don't know business and people can't see it because they don't know business? Or is it like the complicity of the media? What is going
When you
on?
say
Why
these people, when you say, are you talking
I
about
mean, like the
politicians?
administration in general, the administration in particular, I would say,
I
like,
think, in 1883,
yeah.
Senator George Sherton, I think it was. Anyway, the name escapes me, but uh, he caused the Pendleton Act. George Pendleton, there we go. Duh, that's the
Mhm.
name. Senator George Pendleton brought about the Pendleton Act, and it was the thing that shifted our country from administrations based on nepotism to administrations based on merit. You know, and won't get into the history of that, but from that point on, in the 142 years since then, this country has exploded because of the level of practicality brought to political office due to the Civil Servant Act, that
Oh, I
was
had
built.
no idea. I'm opening that. That's amazing. Establish
Yeah,
the principle of federal employment based on merit. Ah, okay.
based on merit. And what
Mhm.
you're seeing right now today is the destruction of that, the
Yes.
wholesale destruction starting back at the end of January this year, the destruction of that. The growth and the ability, the power of this country to do the things it's done has been because of that one act more than anything else. And it embedded into our structure, this society, this government, federal government, a level of practicality, you can call it business practical reality, that is phenomenal. Yes, we've had fools in office at all levels, but they're outnumbered by the people who do a practical good job, or at least they were up until this year. So the so your my point in making that is that the issue you're talking about, what you're railing against, and justifiably so, is a recent change. The things we've seen before have been a thin layer on top of a massive structure that's worked relatively well. And what a lot of people don't realize is that the net percentage of population that was employed by the federal government has actually decreased since 1996 today. A big lie that's been out there is that it's increased. It's actually decreased. We've only increased the federal workforce from about, I think it was a little over 2 million to 2.1 million in that time span, when the population has increased by much more percentage-wise. So the net has reduced, and that's from a perpetual reiterative process of improving the processes of governance. What has happened this year will set us back 30, 40, 50 years. It's an incredible shame. Putting all that back into place is just an incredible shame. Anyway, I realize that where we are time-wise. My apologies.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think that's a very important point, which is it kind of gives me I don't know. I'm falling into this conspiratorial kind of approach. I don't think conspiracy theories and engaging in conspiracy, because there is a conspiracy. Like, in my opinion, going in and destroying the federal government, which is, in many ways, if you think of the American, not because a lot of people, when you talk about that, they say worship of government or all of that. No, but actually, to run a country like the US, you have to be a really, really efficient. So my like machine, regardless of where you are and your, let's say, your complaints, you don't go in and just remove things. It sounds like what these cartoons where somebody goes in and just removes wires, haphazardly from from a machine. Just, it's like that's what they did. If you want to enhance, really, you don't just go in and just start wrecking things around. You look at, you evaluate something that is in place. You look at where you want it to be, where it is. Like, that's how we do it even in business. You look at where you want to go, you look at where you are, and then you devise a strategy to how to get there, so that you don't mess around with what is there, and especially in an ongoing, let's say, entity that is actually delivering or doing work. And I think what you're saying right now and introducing this, my conspiracy mind is saying, well, maybe when you do that, it allows for more nepotism to come in, because if you don't have the professionals to come in, you can put just anybody, and nobody's there to kind of, object or say no, or have even the knowledge, because you're removing all these employees that the government invested in their growth and their learning and their knowledge. And you don't just remove the person, you removed all of the knowledge that are embedded in the person over years
The
of
institutional
service.
knowledge, you are spot on, Hussein. The institutional knowledge that has been ripped out of governments this year, no one can grasp the incredible amount of that there is. Of the major organizations that were defunded and stripped down, probably the one that hurts me the most personally, or I feel for the most, is USAID. USAID, oh my God, that was such a profitable thing for this country. $4 billion a year, that's all we spent on it. And yet our soft and hard benefits to this country were over $4 trillion a year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, any business would give their eye teeth for that kind of a profit return. But it was gutted, and it was gutted because of certain investigations it was involved in. 200,000 people lost their jobs doing good deeds in the name of the United States around the world, creating soft political goodwill for the United States around the world to protect one man.
Yeah.
Because he was given the opportunity to do that damage. Anyway.
So, I have my last question is that, and I recognize that you're very well spoken, and the way that you address it, because where you are. But I think one of the biggest kind of things that drives me crazy is that again, I say these people, but let's say the oligarchy or even the administration that exists right now could have easily gotten their power without the level of destruction that they've engaged in. What I mean by that is they could have easily, like, it's not like, the America, unlike what let's say many people say, America is not like the bastion of, like progressive, thought, in the sense like lefty radical lefts, as they say it. So they could have easily had, achieved what they want, got the government contracts that they want, got the control, while maintaining America being powerful in the world. Like, they can increase their
Yeah,
power.
absolutely.
They didn't have to do all this damage. They didn't have it seems to me, because I grew up in an authoritarian government.
Hmm.
Part of the authoritarian kind of, I think John Stewart talks about it as the authoritarian contract, is, like, feed your people, get them, subdued them, not, antagonize them. Because, and especially the American people, when they're antagonized, they have freedom of speech, or the appearance of that, and they have 400 million guns lying around everywhere. Like, it's not
Right.
like the kind of population that you want to antagonize. This is population with power, have access. They're used to at least the illusion that they have power, and they
Mhm.
can talk to the government, and I pay my taxes, kind of thing. So what's your take about, like, what's the merit? Are they really stupid, or are they really, is there like a strategy for doing this? Because it strikes me from an outsider view that this is very much unintelligent for their goals, like, even from
Well,
their goals
I
to
mean,
achieve that power.
yeah, they're they're not stupid. There's different kinds of smart and different kinds
Mhm.
of stupid, and I mean, it's well known that the guy who started Tesla was not Musk,
Yeah.
um, and things like this. But what people like the current billionaires that we have, the higher end billionaires we have in this country, and others, I'm sure, you got to look at what they're good at that got them there, where their core expertise is, and it
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily have to be engineering or things like this. It might be in sussing out human nature. It might be in sussing out what they can take advantage of and things like that. That's a form of intelligence.
Mhm.
Um, in a lot of cases, there is a brutality to it. I mean, I cannot believe that Musk said what he said. That the West has weaponized empathy. That would indicate that he's not a person that has empathy. His, yeah, his, anyway, it's the and empathy. I'm a firm believer that empathy is the pathway towards the ultimate potential of humanity as a race, as a species. If we want to optimize where we can go as a as humanity, we must come to understand empathy and maximize it across all cultures. And we need to do that with our eyes wide open. What I mean by that is, you mentioned practical reality. Practical reality is different from preferred reality. Too many people get wrapped up in preferred reality and don't take the right steps. Practical reality is recognizing that you are surrounded by people, or there are people all around who have no sense of empathy or what it means. And without that sense, they have no guardrails on what they're willing to do. And time again, we see, you know, um, empathic society grow and start to blossom and stuff like that. And then an autocratic group take over and stamp it down. And in the process, people lose, a lot of people actually lose the ability to be empathic. Another generation comes up with fewer people who are empathic in it. Part of empathy arises out of education, learning, developing. I'll give you a good example. Reading.
Please.
You take someone who has read a lot of books in their youth and someone who has not. Put them side by side in front of a scene. Take them out in a park or whatever and put them side by side and tell them, look around you. Take a look. Okay, I want you both to shut your eyes. Okay, I want you to describe to me everything you see. Let them describe separately. They can't hear each other. And the detail with which the one who had read many books is able to describe their surroundings with their eyes closed will outmatch the other one 10 to 1. This means that they are perceiving more moment by moment around them. It also means that they can model in their head the people around them, and out of this, empathy arises. if you stop the education of people,
Mm.
if you don't let them get educated, they don't evolve as much empathy. 10 to 20 years from now, we're going to have a wave front come through of the current generations growing up without books, growing up where they didn't have to read and stuff like this. And we need to be prepared for that. And that's a whole nother story. But um, I probably ran a little further than that than you wanted. But anyway,
No, that's perfect. I want to leave the last word for you. What is um, you're someone who's now actively participating in, let's say, um, creating, let's say, you're actively participating in creating the next, let's say, America that you want to see, which is I love. That's one of the things I love the most about what you're doing is that you're thinking of ways, practical ways of making it happen, which is why I believe in this, in the idea that when we work together, when there are different people engaged in a direction, it doesn't matter what the ideas they come in, as long as the objective is the same. They're bound to be greater and better ideas. What is that America that you want to see? Um, let's say if it's up to you and the kind of America you want to shape, what does that look like in the future for you? Like this is completely personal. I want to see America through your eyes.
I would love to see an America where people, when they're born and they grow up, they have the chance to be as educated as they want to be, that they are able to learn how enjoyable learning is. And there's a technological attack on that that's going to happen. We got to address aside from political. Um, I would love to see an America where you don't have to spend so much of the time of your life fighting to be alive, fighting to, you know, um, where the majority of your life can be spent uh, enjoying your life, to making the best of your time here, as opposed to struggling to exist. And that's not a problem that's unique to America. I mean, as a matter of fact, we still have it phenomenally well here, but it's going in the wrong direction at the moment. Um, from a political perspective, I'd like to see that we stabilize back and as a democratic republic. Obviously, there's some things I'd like to see: the removal of the electoral college, but fortunately, there are some other people taking care of that. Um, and yeah, at some point, I may get involved in policy outside of the oath of office, but yeah. Um, we claim to be the land of the free, and it's ironic. We have more people in prison than almost any other country in the world, if not more than every country. It's ironic we have more laws and so forth. So, cleaning that mess up. Yeah.
Very good, very good. I wish the same to America. I want to see America that is strong, that represents. I think whenever I talk to Americans, being a Canadian and being a Syrian Canadian troublemaker, I think one of the key things that I look forward to is an America that lives up to its ideals, or continues to, at least, because I think a healthy America, an America that continues to do that, is a hope for the rest of the world. Many people look at her that way. And it's funny, even like the people that move there, the people that are fascinated with America, are always about that image of America that everybody wants. And I think um, I would definitely, that's why I'm working to support that. So thank you very much, Jim. This
Thank
is
you, Hussein.
fascinating conversation. Love what you're doing. Please continue doing it. I'll continue to support from my perspective. And I appreciate everyone for being here. Please go and support the oath of office, Jim Lord. I'll put the links and everything. Just do your best to participate I think, in the supporting and the rising of a new America. We have an opportunity right now. They've accelerated that takeover, and it actually created a movement that activated people. So let's use that to claim an America that is better for everyone. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.